Hello again, this is that library that can do something like this. Absolute dark magic. And so version 0.7 is mainly a bunch of bug fixes and optimizations that we'll see in a moment. But I also felt that in the spirit of WebSockets, I should actually build some kind of support for real-time chat apps. So here we go. Hello, let's post that. So as you can see, both of them instantly receive that, and let's go, I don't know, Socio. Hello, Socio. Whatever, just post it in there. And there we go. And if I create a completely new instance here, you'll see that it will load up the history of the messages. And this, wow, can you not click? Each one of these messages also contains a bit more metadata, like the username and the user ID, or this client ID rather. But overall, it's a very basic implementation. So as per usual, let's just take a quick look at this ancient Sanskrit and prepare yourself, because this code does in fact break some Geneva conventions. First off, we take a look at the backend server. How is this realized? So of course there has to be a chat room, so let's see how that's done. So as usual, you just create the Socio server, and then you're going to create this new chat room class. And this doesn't create any kind of server of its own or any WebSockets of its own. It actually uses the Socio server functionality, the generic communication serve and CMD sub protocols that I built for generic communication a few versions back. So the chat room will just use this function here to emit the new messages to all the connected clients to that particular room. And so here we're just creating one room, and then you're going to register a hook handler, because this all happens through this hook. And then I've provided this convenience function as usual, because all it really needs to do is check what the data is that's going in there. All it really needs to do is check the rel that it's the Socio chat room to not interfere with your other messages. And then it simply just calls these join, leave, or post by the specific client. Then on the front end, something similar happens. We have a chat room client, which again doesn't create its own WebSocket. It rather uses the Socio client WebSocket and the serve function, which is that generic communications other component, the client side component of that. It will send the generic message back to the server. And here we register a handler that will handle a new message or messages coming in. It's a set because upon connecting to the chat room, this will be called with a full set of the message history, which by default is, I think, 10 subsequent calls to this will just contain one message, which is the new message that somebody posted. And here's some just Svelte stuff to be reactive. And then you're going to register this lifecycle hook handler on the Socio client, which says that the server has sent some kind of command to this client, contains some kind of data. And in this instance, we're going to go ahead and handle this chat room data, and you're free to again just handle other events if you have some of your own data here. Then as per usual, you're just going to wait until the socket is ready, and then you're ready to join some kind of room. So here's the ID room number 1, and then later you can decide to leave the room, the current room that it's in. You can also just join a different room, and then to actually post a message, simply call post. Isn't that convenient? And here I've just hooked it up to the enter key. If any of that was confusing, go ahead and consult the documentation here, where I step through it, I guess, more slowly with comments. Note that this is actually a very bad and basic simple implementation. There's a lot of problems with this and missing features with this. Although Socio should not be primarily used for chat apps, because it's far too bloated for that. The Socio framework has a much more grand goal in mind than just simple chat apps. Also new are a bunch of final bug fixes, hopefully, and a lot of optimizations. So in a lot of places I've changed objects to actual maps, because they are much more performant for what I'm doing here, and also using sets, which are also more performant than arrays. And I also decided to revisit the whole admin thing. I sort of left it hanging last time, but now there's a dedicated admin server and an admin client, so that to realize my vision of building a dashboard for a website through WebSockets. So now you can. So this admin server is completely decoupled from Socio clients. It's a completely brand new bare bones implementation, just so you can run the run function. But the admin client actually inherits from Socio client, and all it does is it just adds this run function on there and keeps track of the client secret. So this should be much more convenient, so you can actually use this on the browser, whereas you can't use this one on the browser. So Socio server from the beginning has supported WebSocket message compression, but now I've actually included like a default per message deflate configuration, so that you don't have to configure your own, or you can use this and just configure the individual bits on how you think will perform better. So this will compress each message both on the server and client side, and it'll decompress them automatically. You don't have to worry about any of this. You just pass this into Socio server, consult the docs. However, be careful of using this, and here's a link. there's a big discussion of why this is actually a bad thing to use. There are some very big concerns, so read up on that. So by default, compression is not enabled on Socio server. And another thing that kept me busy was the second branch, where I experiment with using query keys instead of encryptions, because people still have really bad gut feelings about putting SQL on the front end. So you can read up about this discussion on the GitHub, but essentially there are problems with actually having like a query key lookup table. That query table actually has to persist somewhere across different processes, and just exporting it out as a file and then loading it in didn't really work for me all that well. If you know other solutions to this, like perhaps, I don't know, I guess the whole table could be stored in your database, but then that's also problematic because I'm altering your database, and that's kind of weird. Libraries don't really do that. I would like to hear your opinions and suggestions. And with that, we end this episode, and tune in next time where I change my nationality to Italian so that I can make a sauce for the spaghetti code.